Hi, guys, and I'm back, and I've got a good case to look at today. I am looking at two little boys, as Leslie Abramson would have called them, Lyle and Eric Menendez, and what happened at that murder. What I really want to know is who was really the mastermind, and why would they did this? Would they do this? We know they've done it. But let's just take a quick look. So, in order to start off, we've got to talk about everybody. So, there is Jose, there's Kitty, there is Lyle, and there's Eric. Starting with Jose, Jose was born May 6, 1944. He came from Havana, Cuba, where his family was very wealthy. He ended up in the state of Illinois, where he attended college. Kitty, born October 14th, 1941, was already living in Illinois. She was from Oak Lawn, Illinois, which I happen to know that is a beautiful suburb, or we used to be a very beautiful suburb. And she was at the University of Illinois. The two eventually met and dated, and at some point they moved to New York and got married. Once they moved to New York and got married, they gave birth to their first son, Lyle, on January 10th, 1968. They lived in New York for a while, and then they moved to New Jersey, Livingston, New Jersey, where they had Eric, November 27th, 1970. Now, let me just say this before we even get too deep into it. This is just for entertainment. This is just my story. Now, Jose, like I said, he came from a very wealthy family and then came here and made his own wealth. He had many different businesses, but in the end, he was a very wealthy studio executive. He was going to leave his sons or his family at least $14 million. That did not include all the property. That is just the liquid, the cash portion of it. He intended to leave that to them, but now you have to think about Jose was very male and very macho, and he was from a Latin culture, which is very male led. So let's go to the night of the incident. The night was August 20th, 1989, and the boys were out. They were supposed to be going out and about as young guys do. And Kitty and Jose had decided to sit in their den and watch television. Well, after sitting in their den and watching TV, they both fell asleep. Once they fell asleep, the boys busted in the den, guns blazing. They initially shot Jose in the back of the head, killing him. That particular shot woke up Kitty, who jumped up off the couch, started to try to run. She was shot in the leg. She continued to still run, but she slipped in her blood. And at that time, they proceeded to shoot her in the arm and in the chest and in the face so badly that it was completely unrecognizable. The boys then did away with the guns and waited for a while, and then Lyle called 911, screaming and crying into the phone that someone killed my parents, knowing all along that they had done it. He was hysterical. He should have been in acting. Um, Once the police arrived and came into the crime scene, that was just a bloody mess. The alibi the boys had was that they had gone to the movies and then they went to what was called the Taste of LA, which was a food and wine tasting event, and that they weren't even home. The police had no reason to suspect them. This was their parents. They had nothing they had said or done seemed real out of line to the police. With that being the case, the police never ever tested their fingerprints for any gun residue. When you kill someone, there's residue left on your fingers. So they were never tested for that. The police initially thought that it was a pornographer who had worked with Jose on some things, but it turned out that that was not the case at all. Then the police thought that the mob was involved, and they investigated into that aspect of it. But they knew that it was not a mob killing, it was not a mob hit. Things got a little cold, but they were still searching. And it wasn't long before came to the awareness of the police that the boys had spent tremendous amounts of money. Actually, from the time the murder happened on August 20th, 1989, to the arrest, which was March 1990, the boys had spent over $700,000 buying Rolex watches, expensive cars. They had stopped living in the house. They each had bought a condo. One of them had bought a BW3 in New Jersey. It was just on, this non-stop spending. At that point, the police were pretty clear that there were no other suspects, and with the boys going on this spending spree, they knew that it was the boys. They had to get a confession, though. So they asked one of Eric's friends, his name was Craig Signorelli, because police had started questioning their friends. He asked Craig Signorelli, excuse me, to go to lunch with Eric and to wear a wire and talk to him about his parents' murder. Well, Craig actually confronted Eric and asked him, "Did you kill your parents?" Eric said no, he did not. So they thought that was a dead end, the police did. Lo and behold, the boys had been going to a psychologist. They had had their own personal issues, and the psychologist was named Jerome Oziel. Jerome Oziel would record every session of the boys, and it just happened in one of the recordings of Jerome Oziel, the boys confessed to killing their parents. On this same day of the confession, Jerome Oziel's girlfriend was listening at the door. She was in the receptionist area waiting to do lunch with Jerome. Was listening at the door and she heard them confess and she heard them threaten the doctor. Lyle threatened the doctor's life if he ever told anyone. Out of fear and wisdom, as women are, uh, she went to the police with the information and told the police about the tapes and about what she heard. Oziel had to give up the tapes because he had to protect his life. The doctor patient privilege, which would have ordinarily been in place that he would not have to do that, was broken because of Lyle threatening his life. The boys were eventually convicted. They had Leslie Abramson um, was their attorney. Leslie was a very sharp attorney. The problem in this situation was that Leslie got too caught up in the situation and too caught up with Lyle and Eric. She, in fact, even dressed them at various trials. So they first looked preppy, and then that seemed to be a little hard to take for the jury because it looked like they were trying to be uppity. So she had them dressed like schoolboys with little sweaters and shirts. She would even fondle their hair and their shirts. Um, in fact, one of them even wore a toupee, so they would just look so much younger and so perfect. Well, ultimately, after several trials, they were convicted. In 1996, now you imagine the murder happened in 1989. It wasn't until 1996 that the gentlemen, they were not boys, the men were convicted and they got life with no parole. So, my question is, why? What's the motive? Well, one theory is that the father had told them he was going to put them out of the will. Another motive is he wanted them to move out the house. There was a lot of mess in the house. So I said, let me break these people down and see exactly what the dynamics was in the house. So the first person I look at is Jose. And as I look at Jose's chart, I can see that he had freedom in his life. And obviously he would. He came from Cuba to the United States. He went to college. He moved to the East Coast. He got even more famous and more wealthy in the West Coast and living in Beverly Hills, the true American dream he had happened. Sadly, all his confrontations and conflicts would happen publicly, and that is what happened. Jose rising sign was Leo, and that would make him great for doing executive things, great for being in charge. Um, he would be very uh, a boss's boss. He'd be an emperor. He would be domineering. He could be very demanding. He was very attractive. That Leo energy, when you saw that mask of his, you could see that that was the energy of uh, Jose. Very approachable, liked people, liked having a good time. His sun is in Taurus, a great place to be successful. That Taurus, Earth, Taurus loves fine things, fine food, fine wines, the better things of life. So of course he would live in Beverly Hills. That's just natural. He would have worked really hard. He would have been have a warmth to his family, but his job would be number one. His moon is in Libra, and that made him really love beautiful things. That tells me that he was a bit of a womanizer because he does love beautiful things. He doesn't like ugliness. And I don't just mean like, appearances. I mean a messy house or bad behavior. No, he liked beautiful things. His Mercury is also in Taurus. His Venus is in Taurus. This man was a bull all the way. He was totally stubborn. He was a bull in a china cabinet. But here's the deal. Um, Tauruses are not known to be people that snap and go off. You'd have to really push him in the corner to get him upset on some things. But the reality is, he had a Mars in Cancer. That means that this man would go off in that household. He'd have everybody shook. You couldn't cross him. You couldn't reason with him. With that Taurus energy, when he was set on what he believed in, that's it, period. And anybody that thought anything else or came at him in a way that he didn't like, he would get over emotional, overly upset, intense even, and really blast them and let them have it. I always call that the killer spot because people that tend to act in irrational ways have that placement. Um, he has a Saturn in Gemini. Saturn is a very karmic planet. Gemini would tell me why he would do these movings from Cuba to Illinois to New York to New Jersey to that Gemini likes to go here, likes to go. It would tell me why he would be an executive because he'd have a good ability to sell whatever his craft was, whatever he was doing, his studio, any of that. He could sell studios, he could sell projects. People would really believe in him. So when I look at Jose's birthday, May 6, 1944, now when I look at his personal year, I'm going back in time. I'm going to 1989. And 1989, adding that number up, plus the 6 plus the 5, he was in a number 11 life year, personal year, an 11 personal year. Um, got news for you. Eric and Lyle were both also in a number 11 personal year. Number 11 personal year is a very karmic year. It is a harsh year. You got everything coming at you really harshly. It's a year of, it's a time when things are torn down. 11 cannot be minimized to a single digit because it's a master number. So things are tearing down, being torn away, being taken away. I guarantee you, Jose had money problems, tax problems, besides his kids killing him. But they were in a war. Jose, Eric, Lyle, they were in a war. So yes, did he want them out of the house? Absolutely, absolutely, because it was I'm going to say this way, although it might seem insensitive. They were going to kill each other. It was going to be one way or the other with that. Let me take a look at Kitty. Kitty's birthday um Kitty's birthday was October 14th, 1941. And when I look at her personal year for the number for the year 1989, she was at a number 6 year. So that meant that the guys were all going at it and she was trying to carry the load. Jose was out here doing the most. I can tell you, Jose was out here fooling around with that Venus and Taurus. He was out there doing his own thing, the way he wanted to. He wasn't trying to break up his home. No, he wasn't doing that. But he wanted to be out there and socialize with the younger ladies, and that's what he was doing. And Kitty knew it. And Kitty carried the grief, the pain, all the arguments and the drama and the addictions. Kitty sadly was fated for what happened to her. Um, I think a part of me feels like had she stayed asleep or played like she was asleep after the husband got killed, she might have still been living today. But she was fated, and her conflicts happened publicly as well. Um, Kitty was a housewife, if you can say that, house manager. But she took care of all the comings and the goings and what everybody was doing and where everybody was supposed to be. She was on top of that as much as she could. She was under a lot of stress. That six is a lot of responsibility, a lot of burden, a lot of stress, a lot of worry. With that being the case, I could see that she definitely was either drinking or taking pills. I don't know about that. I've never seen that, but I can see in her sign. First of all, she had a rising in Sagittarius. With her rising in Sagittarius, it should be a great thing for her, unless it's ill dignified. And in the case of this house on fire, it was ill dignified. That meant that she was always saying harsh, nasty things to her husband, to her sons. She really was, as a younger lady, when the money and the fame and the power, prestige, whatever, became so much. She used to be a lot of fun. She used to love a lot of freedom and a lot of coming and going and a lot of thinking outside the box and being her own person. And she could have been something, you know, dynamic. She had that ability. She had a son in Libra, would have made her very attractive at the time. By the time that we see her, she looks very haggard and tired, and just life had beaten her down. Her family had beaten her down. Uh, she that Libra placement makes her very warm, fun, funny, great to be around, intelligent, really careful in making her decisions and things, but that she had a moon in Virgo, and that moon in Virgo made her a little bit cool and detached, um, really hyper clean, hyper perfectionist type of energy. So you can see that she stayed on everybody. Okay, she stayed on them as far as where they at, what are you doing, da da da. This has got to be perfect. That's got to be perfect. I think it was Eric, either one of them used to play tennis, and so the dad was hard on him with that Taurus energy, push, 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 that Mars and Cancer going off if he didn't do right, and then the other person was a perfectionist, so it was a constant ah, on top of them. Her Mercury is in Libra, so that made her appear weak to the boys because it seemed like she couldn't make her mind up and stick to it, definitively. It was 1 minute we're doing this, next minute we're doing that. Oh no, let's go back to that. And when you're raising a family, you've got to have definitive boundaries. She had a Venus in Scorpio. Oh my goodness, a Venus in Scorpio. I'm gonna tell you something. The boys said that they killed their parents to escape um, abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And I always felt that that was not really true. I think there definitely was physical abuse with that Mars in Cancer, and she's got a Mars in Scorpio, so she was super intense. She could get super angry. She could get angry just would linger and linger for her. And so, with that being the case, did I think they were physically abused or punched and all that? Yes, absolutely. With her Venus in Scorpio, do I think that in his Venus in Taurus, very similar? Were there some, I call it foolala going around? Yeah, there's a little bit of that going around. Uh, Not in the sense that they tried to put it, because they sort of hinted at it, but there was some things that happened and this is just alleged, that were uncomfortable. There were some sexual explorations. There were some sexual discoveries that were uncomfortable in that household. um, Her Jupiter is in Virgo. She has which means more of being a perfectionist, more of wanting everything right, more of having stability. Her Saturn, her lessons is in Cancer. That just makes her, for the people that you love, even though you love them because that's your family and that's that Cancer side, they love family, they love home. Part of her she was kind of distant. She was cool to them, especially if they let her down or could not trust her or they weren't reliable. And being that they were spoiled, they were brats, they weren't very reliable. Whereas you look at her birthday, that October says that she was the same when she grew up in Oaklawn. Oaklawn is a very, like I said, a affluent suburb of Illinois, and she was spoiled. She liked she did that. Her 14 in her birthday tells us that even though she's married, she'd have to live like she was single most of the time. But her 4 tells us whoever she'd married to be somebody that's an executive and powerful, and that together, that 1 and 4 would be a lot of changes, which there was a lot of changes for her. Um, with his birthday at number 5 says that he had a lot of moving, a lot of severity, a lot of growing up fast, a lot of lessons to be learned. And number 6 with a single digit in there says that he did not consider himself tied down. He was married, but some men are married, but they don't feel like that. Okay, but I'm going to be a 6. I'm going to be responsible for everybody. I'm going to pay the bills, all of that, but don't put tabs on me. And they would argue nonstop. They would argue and they would hit completely chaotic situation. All right. So let's take a look at Eric and Lyle really quickly because these are the stars of our show. Eric was born November 27th, 1970, and I don't like that birthday at all. His 11 tells me that he either had a twin or a sibling. In this case, he had one brother. That's the 1 and the 1. Very spoiled, very not wanting to move, not wanting to move out of the house. He was in a number 11 years, so this was bound to happen to him. It was his life because his life was ill dignified. It was ill. It was just completely undignified. It was completely a harsh situation for him. Even his personal life path is an 11, so that's an 11, and so that is crazy. That is the gateways to many things, and it could be something terrific. He could have been very spiritual type of person, very new age, but that wasn't something that they dealt in. His rising is in Virgo, so he was also very much a perfectionist. Didn't want anyone telling him what to do. His sign shows that he had a lot of freedom, but he liked to keep his business private. And I see that as his sun in Sagittarius, his moon in Scorpio, his Venus in Scorpio, his Jupiter in Scorpio. This dude was a secret planner and plotter. You could not trust him at all. His sun in Sagittarius, along with um, his mom's rising in Sagittarius, means they were either getting along or they were complete conflict. Each having their own separate. I want to do it this way. I want to do it my way. You don't tell me what to do. And he was constantly going off and disrespecting his family. His Mercury is in Sagittarius. His moon sitting in Scorpio says, yes, absolutely. That is so dark. That Scorpio energy has to do with death, okay? Has to do with rebirth. And he had to go to prison to be born again. That moon is a dark area. That is speaking of very intense emotions, extremely intense emotions. Very angry, or he could be very happy. Um, if he had a Venus in Scorpio, Scorpio being his attraction or attractions to people, and either he liked you or he didn't. It was black and white. If he liked you, great. He really wanted to hold on to you, like he had tried to do with his brother. But if he didn't like you, you don't exist to me. You don't exist to me. He didn't like dad, didn't like mom. You don't exist to me. Um, his Jupiter is in Scorpio. So that meant that he did some investigating. Somewhere along the line, I guarantee you, they found the will. They found the will. They saw what was in it or what was going to be in it. They had to have, because with that Jupiter and Scorpio, he would be a natural detective. They knew what was going on. They knew that they were going to get the boot. They knew that they had been living off their parents, sucking their parents dry for money and things and more, and never satisfied. And they wanted them out of the house and out of their lives. Um, it's funny too because he could have been so much better. He has a Taurus in Saturn, and with that, in order for him to be the best person, he'd have to have something that wasn't offered to him. and he would have to have a very firm hand. He would have to have complete structure, and these are the boundaries, and holding him accountable. And somebody in that house saying, no, you don't need to buy this. No, you're not going there. No, you don't need this outfit. Instead, it was Kitty, and I think Kitty was drinking or taking pills. This, like I said, this is alleged. So they couldn't respect her. They had no respect for their mother, period, because she was sloppy. Okay, she didn't have the boundary like that. And then all of a sudden, Dad pop in with that Mars and Cancer, hollering and screaming, "Dad, take care, do something with them. They're not listening to me." And he comes in swinging or hollering and screaming and tripping. All of a sudden, you've got a whole explosion going on in that house, and there is no boundaries, and he could have done well. Lastly, we look at Lyle. Lyle's birthday was January 10th, 1968. He also was in an 11-year that year. Again, tearing things down, destroying things. That's what 11s do at that time. Again, kind of like Lyle, like his mother, it was destined to happen. And although Eric does things in private, Lyle does them in public. And I'm going to give you this real quick, and then I'm going to tell you who plotted this murder. So we've got a rising in Taurus. Taurus is great. Taurus is a little bit slow. Taurus is stubborn. Taurus likes nice things. They like the fine life. There can be a bit of a bull in a china cabinet. They're slow in making decisions and plottings versus Eric's rising is in Virgo, and his mind is a Mercury, and it's snapping and clapping and clicking left and right. um, Lyle's sun is in Capricorn. His moon is in Taurus. So Lyle thinks money, 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 money. And Eric thinks freedom, freedom, freedom. Doing whatever it is I want, my terms. Lyle has a rising in Taurus, a sun in Capricorn, a moon in Taurus, a Mercury in Capricorn. This dude is like, if it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. He wanted everything financially. He didn't have the desire so much to work for it, unless it was something that he'd like to do. Then he would work for it, but had to have leisure involved in it. Um, his Venus was in Sagittarius, and that would make him um, really sad and really hurt, especially with him being the oldest, when mom turned to drink and dad turned to women. And they knew what was going on because they would have these loud blow-ups in the house, so they heard everything. And being that his Sag is in Venus, this is a very honorable place for it to be, unless it's ill dignified in the environment that we was in. And it made him, their marriage made him very hurt and very disappointed. And he felt that they were just not honorable, like they just were not worthy to be living. um, he's got a Mars in Pisces. Whoa, a Mars in Pisces. That is where all the devious and deceptive stuff happen. Yes. If he is feeling hurt and disappointment, that Mars in Pisces kicks in. And so now he's plotting and he's planning. Yes. His Jupiter is in Virgo. And so one of the things that would have him fear is because Virgo is a dutiful sign. You tell them to do it, they're going to do it. But if it's in Jupiter, there's a lot of things to do, and he begins to fear all that responsibility because he was being the person who was sort of the family counselor in a way, or it's okay, you'll be okay, mom, or whatever, or pleasing and satisfying mom. Um, his Saturn is in Aries, and at the end of the day, with that Saturn, and Saturn says, hey, slow it down. But Aries says, no, I want a freedom. I want to go and come. I want to do what I want to do. Um, so putting that, you got to work like this, and then putting that Aries in there, that would make him good at plotting and thinking of things to do. So when it comes to who made the decision, it was Lyle. Lyle is the one who made the decision to do this. That Mars in Pisces, that plotting with that Saturn in Aries, that desire, all that Earth, that Taurus, Capricorn, Taurus, rising Taurus, Sun cap, Moon Taurus, Mercury cap, him wanting the finer things of life, but the easy way, he came up with a plan. It became a burden for him to carry the problems of his mom. It became extremely hurtful to see his dad doing the fool la line that his dad was doing, fooling around. He knew about it already. It was out there publicly. He is the one that plotted the situation. Um, Eric went along. D- Lyle was destined to do this. Remember, he's got destiny. So he was destined for this to happen to him. And it is Eric who had the freedom to walk away and go tell the police. But Eric has a lot of loyalty with all that Scorpio. He's extremely loyal. And although he is not necessarily at plotty, he is able to keep it a secret. He held the secrets of everything that was going on in that family along with Lyle. So Lyle would experience it and then tell Eric. Eric would experience it deeper. Lyle would say, "Let's get a plan. I got a plan. Why don't we do this?" Eric would say, "Okay, I'm going to do it. I'm not going to tell." And did they have some of the abuses they spoke of? They did. They did. Okay. There was definitely physical abuse. You don't have a father who has a Mars and Cancer and not get physically disciplined. Right or wrong, you do. You don't have a mother who is weak. She was weak. Just a lot of that Libra. There's Scorpio there. There's water there. There's unstable air in the places that it sits in. Was she having them do things that was illicit? Yes, not Eric, but Lyle. Lyle would, and even maybe Eric, because Eric wouldn't have released that information anyways. So that is the crime. That's how it got done. And thank you guys for watching. Subscribe, share, thumbs up, and leave a comment. Tell me who you think